I'm here in the Wichita airport and I'm about to head out on another trip. But this video is about a trip I did in 2019 to Bolivia. And you're probably wondering, why would I be releasing a video from 4 years ago? And if you were an old follower of this channel, some of the first videos I ever did were from South America, because I had started the YouTube channel shortly after I did this trip. So I did a video about Easter Island. I did a video about Peru, some of my favorite trips I've ever done. And I've had this Bolivian footage and I've never done anything with it. So I thought I'll edit it someday. Well, today is the day. So as I get ready to head off on another trip, I'll let you check this out. And at the end of this video, I'll even tell you about another video that I had edited previously that you can check out as well. We start our day flying to La Paz, Bolivia, early in the morning. It was still dark, and arrive at La Paz. Everything is in Spanish. I don't speak any Spanish, so some of the days were more difficult than others. I go through kind of down to my hotel in La Paz, and just interesting street scenes. La Paz is the highest elevation for a capital city in the world at around 12,000 feet. It really took a toll on me. I struggled with the altitude. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but La Paz is a really interesting city to check out. So at this part of the trip, I had been in South America for a couple weeks, and I was starting to struggle with the altitude. I did 15 flights in 14 days. And so, yeah, it was a struggle. So any advice I can give is, if you're going to South America or going to La Paz or going to Machu Picchu, places like that, make sure you're ready for the altitude. I was not. I might have had a few too many adult beverages with some of my new friends that I made on the trip. Back at it the next morning with our flight over to Uyuni, Bolivia, where the salt flats are. I love flying in little planes like this. Maybe some people might not like that, but I always enjoy it. You can see the salt flats off into the distance, kind of blurry. But then we land. There's a great little tiny airport. Pretty much the reason it's here so tourists can come check out the salt flats, and it's just wide open in this part of Bolivia, and inside the airport was really small too. I didn't get any film of that, unfortunately. Walking through the town of about 30,000 people, there's a railroad history, which you'll see a little bit later, even more significant, and this is me just kind of walking through a downtown. And while it's different than the United States, there's still some great history. And definitely here in the town square, some really awesome old buildings. They had the Dakar Rally, which is a car race through the salt flats. And then in my time in South America, this was pretty typical on the street. Just lots of vendors, people just trying to, make a few dollars. And, cost of living, everything's very inexpensive down there for an American. And so they're just there trying to sell what they can, and there's shops like this all throughout. When I was in Chile or Bolivia or Peru, just kind of everywhere you go. And so this is my hotel, the Hotel Casa de Sal, which basically means the Salt Hotel, and very unique. You don't find something like this in the United States, and so I was trying to experience all the unique things I could find while in another country. And not everything is made of salt, but obviously it's a salt theme, and pretty cool. And once again, these hotels are, if you're ever going there, are pretty inexpensive. Now 2019, I don't know what it's like today, but back then they were pretty inexpensive to stay at. Nice big room, and there's the llama. Llamas are a big thing down there in South America, so you see little things with llamas everywhere. And once again, I wasn't in this room very much except for trying to sleep, but cool little decor all around. The next morning, that's my tour that I chose starting, and we kind of a bonus. We went right outside the town is this train cemetery, and it's just a history of a bunch of or relics and remains of a bunch of trains that used to be here. It was a pretty significant railroad town because of the mining that happened here And so pretty cool place to stop and check out. Certainly a tourist attraction, a lot of history there, and that was fun. The next part of the video makes me laugh. When I'm in the car with the Spanish-speaking tour guides, and there was 3 guys from Colombia there as well. Their favorite song was Kenny Rogers' "Coward of the County," and they played that for me because I was American. And they played this multiple times, and I didn't really have the heart to tell them what the song was about, but I found it funny. And then later on in the video here, you hear me talking to the lady who was the tour guide about it. Reached above the fire, took down Now we're heading on out to the Salar de Uyuni, or something like that. My Spanish is terrible. So this is a little town, I think it was called Colchani, and basically, if you were in the United States, it'd look like a ghost town or something like that. Just some old buildings, and they have the history of how they make, or what they process the salt and what they would do. So they would start the tour there. You see some old buildings and an old truck, and so for someone who likes the stuff people on this channel usually watch, it's a pretty cool little stop. Now we're kind of entering the beginning of the salt flat. Once again, this is the largest salt flat in the world. Something like 10,000 square miles. And I've been to a couple different ones. I've been to Bonneville Salt Flat in Utah, which is a very, very large one. And then I've been to the one in Oklahoma, which is much smaller. But this one, you can look across, it's, a couple hundred miles, and you see things across the way. It's so flat, and you're really feeling like you're in the middle of a different planet. Once again, the Dakar Rally, sports car rally, was ran through here. You're able to drive really fast through here if you want to, and they have little kind of stops, along the way for tourists to get out, take pictures, or maybe take a break. About every flag you can imagine. I did find, you see the American flag kind of in the middle over there. Interestingly enough, on my trip, I hardly saw any Americans. I don't think I saw one American on this trip, and maybe it was the time of the year I went. It was considered winter, but I was kind of surprised I didn't see very many American tourists down there. And this is an example of a place you would stop, and we stopped here and ate lunch, but a lot of cool stuff to check out. You don't find this in the United States very often, even though the United States is awesome. It's cool to just go to a different culture and see some different things. Back out on the road, we're just continuing driving towards those mountains where we'll be staying for the night. And then you get out just every once in a while, stop and check things out. And here is where we ended up taking a bunch of fun photos. You've seen maybe some interesting photos through the years in the salt flats. And this is where, a lot of people would do stuff like that. And we took some with my new Colombian friends. It's all forced perspective where, obviously we're not standing on a shoestring, or I don't have them in a pot. But, the photographer, the tour guide was really talented with showing us how to do that. Godzilla is about 10 inches tall in real life. So that was a lot of fun, just getting out. If you're a tourist there for the first time, you got to do that, while you're in the salt flats. Getting towards the end of the day, I didn't know we were going to do this, but we stopped off in a little kind of ghost town that had a cave. And I'm not a big geologist or anything like that, but it was a unique experience seeing inside this cave. I've been in a few caves in my life, and this was pretty unique, checking out the inside of a cave near the world's largest salt flat. As we get towards sunset, if you wondered what the salt looked like, that's about as close as I could get with the camera. And now we hung out for about an hour, just taking in a nice sunset. It's just clear as you can imagine. And a nice way to end the day. And then you'll hear here as the sun sets the music selection.
Very nice music, right?
Do you know his other songs? His many songs.
Only one.
He's got many songs.
Yeah, there are. Tomorrow, in my office, I think one.
Now I'm heading to my hotel for the night. I don't know what town we were in. It was certainly, ghost town feeling. There's not a lot of electricity here. But this was a, quote, salt hotel. And you can see as you walk in, that's the whole motif. And as we go through here, there's a nice llama on the wall. And as we get into my room, it's even more significantly salt themed. And it was so cold that night, I did not sleep at all. But it was an experience like I've not had before. Next morning, we are now up watching the sunrise. So just a few hours after I got to the hotel, back at it. And the only vegetation out there in the salt flat are these cacti. And so there was a cool place to watch the sunset. It's just a once again unique experience watching a sunrise in a place so different. And I'm sure there are other places in the world like this, but I'd never been to somewhere like the salt flats in Bolivia. So that was a cool experience, waking up in the middle of, as they would say, the middle of nowhere, Bolivia. And that's pretty much the end of the tour. There were some other things to see the next day. I was struggling with some of the altitude, and so I was minimal in what I was able to do and record, but I hit most of the highlights there. And the drive back is basically through the same areas as we drove the day before. So we stopped off, took some more pictures, and had some, lunch and all that. And it was just looking back at it, I'm glad I did it. I wish I would have been a little more prepared. I really struggled, like I said, with the altitude. Well, that's the end of the video. No big climactic ending here. Like I said, I was kind of feeling rough, and so the day just ended. I went back to the town, flew back to La Paz, then came back to the United States the next day. So was glad to get back, but also had a lot of fun there in South America. So that completes my South American playlist. And at the bottom here in the description, I'll put the entire playlist. And it will also include the first video I ever did, of which I never released. And it was just a kind of trial to learn how to do some editing and get a feel for it. But it was like an introduction to my vacation that year, a real short video about Wichita. So it's kind of embarrassing because I didn't quite know what I was doing, and I didn't even know if I wanted to do the YouTube stuff at that point. So I'll put it there. It's unlisted, but it's part of the playlist. And if you want to check out the beginnings of Travel with a Wise Guy, there is the secret video there. But yeah, so if you didn't like this video, or if you're like not interested in this kind of travel, don't worry. Next week, we'll be back in the United States and showing you some small towns, some ghost towns from Iowa.